and Meghan right before the Queen's death. And he was supposedly calling out the media for what he considered a bad framing of Prince Louis. And yet when you look at the video, it's like, it's hard to see what the issue is. And I couldn't help but wonder if it wasn't as much he was calling out the media, but subtly calling out Catherine and William, criticizing their parenting and allowing their children to be exposed to the media the way that they are. And I came to that conclusion because his frame of reference for royal parenting is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who are doing everything contrary to what the royal handbook basically lays out for parents. Because I've been watching royals for a very long time, well over 10 years, and I can tell you right now, toddlers are doing royal events. Toddlers are meeting crowds of people, even babies that can hardly walk. They are meeting people as royals because that's what royals do. So we're going to explore this because I think it's really important to call out what he's talking about here, because royal parenting is very different than any other parenting you will do, because your child not only belongs to you as a parent, they also technically belong to the people. And so royals have to have this very careful balance of maintaining their children's privacy, yet also exposing them to the role in the world that they will one day inhabit, that they were born into, this leadership role of being royals, of serving the people. They don't learn that at 18. They start learning that as children. So we're going to explore into this today because, like I said, I think this is important to call out because Harry and Meghan have done a horrific job of confusing the public about what is royal and what is celebrity. Because Harry and Meghan call themselves royals, yet they act like celebrities. And I feel like that leaves people very confused. So I'm going to try to share with you not only what the Brits do, but basically what every other royal does in Europe, because trust me, there are babes doing royal engagements. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news, sometimes a little bit of gossip. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be awesome. I also have a fashion channel, a newsletter, and an upcoming trip to Germany and Austria, which I only have a day left or so to sign up. It officially closes July 17th. So if you're interested in touring castles and palaces in Bavaria and Austria, I would love to have you join us. So again, all the links for everything will be down below. And I feel like this video is very apt because I had filmed one actually the day before talking about this subject, but I decided it requires a lot of nuance, so I wanted to redo it. But what I said in that video, which I thought, is that Catherine and William would go to the men's finals at Wimbledon and they would bring not only George, because George went last year, but Charlotte too. And I was entirely right. George and Charlotte were there, and not only there, they met the winner. They actually met King Philippe of Spain, who they may have met before, maybe not. Obviously, we had the coronation and the funeral, which both of the children attended, although I don't know how much they were exposed to some of these foreign royals given the heaviness of the occasion. So the children had a great time. Charlotte was bossing it up there in her very, very cute sunglasses. She is going to be a little fashionista someday, and it was very cute to see her interacting with King Philippe, who was very, very handsome, by the way. And George, too, you could tell he was excited, and that him and Charlotte, I think, are really, really close, and that'll serve them super well. I'm so excited that they'll have the close relationship, I think, that Charles and Anne have developed over the last several years. I think Charles and Anne were always somewhat close, but I think since the Queen's death and as their parents got older, as the two oldest siblings, because they're older than their younger siblings, Andrew and Edward, by about 10 years, I think they become even closer and appreciate each other even more. So I think we're seeing this fantastic relationship develop between all of these siblings. And Catherine and William have one of the toughest jobs, you could say, in a person with a public profile, which is basically allowing the public into their lives since birth. Charlotte, George, and Louis were presented to the world hours or even a day old. In the case of George, it was a day. Charlotte and Louis, hours old. People are invested and attached to these children because that's what Catherine and William have to do. They are royals, so they have to raise their children not only privately, but within this very, very public life. These children have gone on tours, or at least Charlotte and George have. They went to Canada together. George went to Australia and New Zealand. And I'm looking forward to hoping that we see all three of the kids on a tour of Australia and New Zealand maybe next year. Given that Catherine and William are going to Singapore this year for the Earthshot Prize, I think Australia and New Zealand will be next year. And Charlotte and George also went to Germany, Poland. I think it was just Germany and Poland for the European tour that they did. And Catherine even had the unenviable job of having her toddler, Charlotte at the time, start to develop into a little bit of a temper tantrum. And Catherine had to very carefully manage that and actually managed to calm her down and get her to move on to the next things that they had to do publicly. That is an incredibly unenviable job. And I think somebody like Maison Harryman, whose sole understanding of royals is taken from Meghan Markle, who knows nothing about royalty. She really doesn't. And him basically not only criticizing the media, which a lot of people say was his intention, but you could also see underlying that he's criticizing Catherine and William for putting their children in the situation to begin with. Because he's saying it should just be carefully managed. That it should just be a small number of shots that basically everybody approves, and that there can be none of this candid thing we see with the children. Very much how Harry and Meghan have done with their children. So let me go ahead and read you his tweet. And of course, you can agree with me, disagree with me. I'm gonna read it to you. I'm gonna put it up on the screen too. Let me know in the comments below if you think my interpretation of what he's saying is right. So he said, I really wish the press would just stop filming these babies all, capital with the A, I don't know if he meant to do that, the time. Let them be. Number one, they're not babies anymore. They're children. George will be a teenager here before we know it. In just 3 short years, he'll technically be a teenager. He's going to turn 10 next week. Louis is the youngest. He is 5 and Charlotte is 8. They are not babies anymore. They're not little infants. So this is part of their world. And so I think him calling it out in this way immediately puts a spin on it that's not accurate. He goes on to say, it doesn't feel right. Even if it's a formal press call, they should just publish the setup shots and not this candid observation stuff, especially when they are so small. Again, they're not so small. And was he calling any of this out years ago when the kids were doing tours and there was a video of Charlotte sitting on a dog, which some people had complained about? He wasn't calling them out then, but of course he didn't know Prince Harry and Meghan Markle then, did he? Does advertising revenue matter more than protecting these kids? Come on, folks. I guess he's calling out Sky News there? Also, some of the comments on Twitter are abhorrent. We have to be better than this. Number one, a lot of the worst comments are from either anti-monarchists or the Sussex squad. So he really is calling out his own side there for making really terrible comments. However, if you actually watch the video, the Sky News video, yes, they focus on Louis a bit, but they give 2 descriptive terms that you could say, I guess, is what his issue is, but I really don't think they're that bad. So they say Louis looks bored and restless, which he did. He is 5, so some of that was cool to him on the airplane, some of it wasn't. He's not quite as mature as his older siblings, and his parents have done a very good job of keeping him back. But I don't think the descriptive as restless and bored is really all that negative. It's just describing what we can all see and observe for ourselves as a child that looks a little bit restless, not quite sure what's going on. And it was interesting because he made this comment on Instagram as well. And a royal reporter tried to explain to him the situation that happens at these events, and this one in particular. This is from Lizzie Robinson. She says, hi, Maison. A small number of media were invited by Kensington Palace to cover the Prince and Princess of Wales's visit to the Royal International Air Tattoo with their children on Friday. This was an official press engagement. There was one print reporter, a photographer, and a broadcast crew capturing the visit. Their words and pictures were then distributed to other outlets on a pool basis to keep the number of media involved to a minimum. The media are kept at a short distance out of respect for the children. I hope this helps. And of course, he has to push back. I didn't get the full comment, but he says, thanks, Lizzie. Even if it's a formal press call, you know, it's still invasive in his opinion. But he doesn't understand royalty at all. I think what he's reflecting on, what he's comparing this to, is the life that Harry and Meghan have laid out for their children, which is not royalty. it's celebrity. And Harry and Meghan have decided that they want to keep their children private. Fine, that is your right. Unfortunately, what this also sets up for is that the public is not attached to their children. The public cannot pick their children really out of a crowd if they're not with their parents, most likely. Now, while Harry and Meghan might say, oh, that's great, that protects our children's privacy, and their friends who don't understand royals are like, yes, that is perfect, that is fantastic. You're keeping your kids' privacy, you're protecting them for the future. When actually, Harry and Meghan are not, because the general trend of Europe right now is actually to strip aspects of royal titles from children, or even adults. This is the case in Denmark. The princes and princess from the Queen's younger son were demoted to counts and a countess. And I anticipate that that's probably what will happen to Archie and Lilibet at some point. My suggestion to the British royal family has always been amend the letters of patent to say that you must be raised and educated in the UK to have a title of a prince and princess. I think that should be the bare minimum that happens. This is actually the case in Sweden. So Princess Madeline of Sweden, she actually lives here in Florida, and she needs to at some point move her children back to Sweden, which she was planning on doing this year. Apparently they pushed it to next year, but she needs to move them back to Sweden so they can actually stay in the line of succession and keep their titles. And I think her parents are getting older, so I think she wants to, and her husband is a bit international too. He has lived in London, he's lived in New York, so I think that'll probably be fine for them, but that is a extra stipulation on their lives. And I think that's something the Brits should do too, because it's silly to me to walk around with a royal title from a country you haven't spent any time when you don't have any relationship with the other family members who are royal. And so it really seems very, very silly. And the thing is, because Harry and Meghan have not attached the public to their children, the public will not care when this happens. In fact, the public might cheer when this happens. Nobody was super excited that Harry and Meghan decided to call their kids a prince and princess. In fact, for most people, they looked like absolute hypocrites for doing it. And again, nobody cared because they've set up this precedence where you can't see their kids. We'll give you flashes and images of them like a lot of celebrities do, but you can't see them. But because you can't see them, you can't invest in them. And because you can't invest in them as a public, eventually, if something happens like their titles are stripped, I don't think anybody will care. So I think what Maison is doing is he's comparing this life that Harry and Meghan have set out and going, the Waleses are doing it wrong. Because look at them, they're bringing their kids out, the cameras are everywhere, they're catching them in candid moments, they're catching them being children. The horror of capturing children being children. Mystery to me. And I thought it would be fun, and I set out on Twitter because I was trying to explain this to Maison and he did block me. But all the royals do this, Maison, all of them. All of them expose their children to the media in candid moments, sometimes in very embarrassing moments, because that's what it means to be royal. If you are a royal parent, you know, again, like I said, that your child belongs to you, but they also belong to the people. And if the people see your children as an extension of their family, their friends, what have you, they are more likely to support them in the future. That's why people are so supportive of William, and for a while, Harry, is because we saw them grow up. We were engaged with them. We saw them lose their mother. People emotionally attached to them. And because of this, Harry and William were set up for the future. Now, Harry destroyed all that by marrying Meghan Markle and everything like that. But all the royals do this. And I wanted to make this abundantly clear because, again, Maison doesn't know anything about this situation, really. And he's not seeing what the rest of the royals do. Because I even commented to him on Instagram, and then he later deleted that comment too. That, have you seen what the other royals do? You would be horrified by what they do. But again, it's what they have to do. So one of the first examples I pulled from is the christening of Princess Ariane of the Netherlands. So this is the third child of King Willem Alexander, his wife Queen Maxima. At the time, they were the Prince and Princess of Orange, and they brought all their children, including their cousins, all to this ceremony. And it ended up with a lot of the kids rolling around on the floor and walking here, there, and everywhere. And there was a point, and I'll have to see if I can find one of the videos, where they're just out and out laughing. Like, the parents are out and out laughing at this chaos. And it's funny, it's engaging, and they're exposing their children to these moments. These are not highly coordinated situations. They are and they aren't. They're letting the kids be kids. So go ahead and take a watch a little bit here. Okay, I really love that. I just find it really, really funny. We also have this event where they do a photo call every summer. We just actually had it recently. All the girls are now teenagers, and 2 of them have graduated from high school, so now they're getting to be quite young ladies. But we do have this one. This was shortly after Princess Ariane was born, around the time of Princess Alexia's birthday, so that's our middle child, and they're blowing out a candle. They're eating cake, and the photographers are there taking their picture because that is their normal. They were the children of the future king, so they have to be introduced to the public. And not only that, but the kids have to be introduced to the roles that they will inherit and the life that they'll have to live. They have to be introduced to this aspect of media that will follow them, but won't follow their friends, their family, other family members, and those that they interact with. This is something that really solely they will experience. They even followed the kids to school one day when all 3 of them went. And I don't know about you, but a port of press did not follow me to my first day of school. That was not something I experienced. If you did, interesting. I think only a small number of people can say that that's happened to them. And again, it comes back to royalty. We also have the Swedes. So when it comes to christenings in Sweden, they are fun. We won't get some now for quite some time, which is a little bit of a bummer, because I think the king's children, they've all had the number of children they are going to have. Maybe we'll get a surprise 4th from either Princess Sophia, maybe Princess Madeline. I don't really think so though. I think basically everybody is done. And the first one we have here is Prince Nicholas. Not only did he cry during a good portion of it, but we have his sister, Princess Leonor. She was a little over 1 at the time because their birthdays are actually rather close. They're only separated by about a year. And she's a bit of a free spirit. And so she's squirming and trying to get out and doing other things. And her little behavior there, I think honestly it's very cute, and it makes what it could be a more boring ceremony more enjoyable from a viewer, especially if you don't speak Swedish. You're like, oh, this is funny. And then when it comes to Princess Adrian, so this is Leonor's youngest sister, so she was born a couple years later. I think Nicholas at this point was 3 or 4, Leonor was 5. The fun got dialed up to about 11. Leonor at some point took off her shoes. She was rolling around literally in the middle of the floor, and her parents were like trying to get her to rein in, but she's been well known for being a free spirit. They actually took her to her duchy once, and they got to this one place and she just took off and was running around in a field, and her parents were like, yeah, she kind of does that. And you could say what you want about their parenting. I just think it's cute. I just think she's somebody with a really, really strong will. And I think it's rather adorable. And also she has the added benefit as she's not going to be the future queen. And that's a burden that Princess Estelle has. And Estelle, when it comes to Sweden, she's been doing royal engagements since she was a toddler. And she's done basically her first solo royal engagement. Her parents were basically there too. But she's done her first one where she's led the way a bit and her parents sort of followed. And she was 10. And so she's learning these ropes, and I think she genuinely loves it. She loves being able to do royal things, to being able to represent her country. I think her parents have really instilled in her a love of this, because yes, are any of her other classmates doing this? No. But that is the role she'll have growing up. So that's something that she has to get used to, because she'll be a working royal. She'll one day be queen. Her mother will be counting on her to help. In addition, she'll have obviously her cousins around, but they won't really be working royals. She does have a younger brother. So she has a unique role of having to figure out how to live this different life than basically anybody else she knows. Obviously, she knows a lot of royals. One of those would be in Denmark. So this would be Prince Christian of Denmark. He will be one day the future king. There he is arriving to the christening of his cousin Prince Henrik, who is now Count Henrik. And he's boss babying it around a bit. And Princess Isabella is in his mother's arms. And so she's enjoying a bit of this too. And when they get in the church, she actually starts taking out toys. And this is a very, again, you could say solemn, serious ceremony, but they're royals. So they start bringing the kids because they need the kids to get used to these type of situations. It's kind of like if you go to church every Sunday. If you go to church every Sunday, you learn rather quickly how to sit and be still for the most part, because that's part of your training as a child with the lifestyle your parents lead, is for you to go to church. And so you learn how to be in a church service and sit in a pew and be, for the most part, rather quiet. We then have this event where it looks like it's some sort of fun run. And at the end, there's photographers and reporters basically putting big microphones in these kids' faces. They look like they're 6, 7, 8 and asking them questions, and they're answering them. And they're doing a great job, honestly. That's better than I think maybe I would do if that was my first time doing that. And they're comfortable with it because their parents have been teaching them how to interact with the media, because that is part of their role in life, is interacting with the media in these candid and also in these more formal moments. And so sometimes this is not totally controlled, but that I think is part of the fun, as we saw in Sweden, is that some of it is the uncontrollableness of the situation. That's part of the fun. Just for reference sakes, I also pulled up, we had the christening of Princess Anne, where they talk about how Prince Charles is rather running around. And so that is rather cute. It's a very cute little bit. And obviously as well, there were video cameras capturing after the christening of Her Majesty's children. Princess Anne is now in her 70s, and so is King Charles. So it's been a while since that's happened, but yes, they filmed it because that's part of royal life. And so we also have a christening video of King Carl Gustaf now of Sweden. So this was again, way back, I think in the 40s. So the video quality isn't very good, but you can see he has his sisters there. We don't really get much, but again, your life as a royal to a certain extent is for the world to consume. And then we also have the Monaco Twins. So this is Prince Jacques and Princess Gabriella. They're literally doing a walkabout in their parents' arms as babies. Prince Charles of Luxembourg has also been doing this. He's also gone with his parents to formal events, even a very, very formal event. So in the case of Princess Ingrid Alexandra of Norway, she had her 18th birthday recently. And so a lot of Europe came to celebrate that with her, including little Prince Charles, who was like 2. And so there's this really cute picture of him with the rest of the future queens of Europe. Not all of them, but some of them. And so Princess Estelle was there, and she had a bejeweled headband, you know, because she's about 10. And then we have the other ladies in there wearing their tiaras for the first time, their first time wearing a tiara. And so it was just a really, really cute picture. And he just got little Prince Charles. He looks so cute. And he's getting used to his royal role, but his parents have brought him out to a lot of things that you would consider too formal for a child of his age, to engagements to like old person's homes and stuff like that. But they're showing him the ropes. They're showing him this job that he will have. And then when it comes to Ingrid Alexandra, we'll say, number 1, she did her first solo royal engagement at 11. And it was, she had to try to smash a bottle of champagne against a ship. Took her a couple times, but she did it. She also gave a speech. And there was another video I found where the press followed her to her first day of school. You saw her desk that said Ingrid on it. Her parents were there. The king was there. And she had this very much this focus that most children do not have on their first day of school. And why is that? Well, that's because she's a future queen of Norway. I don't think it happened with her brother, but did it happen with her? Yes. We've also seen the Waleses do this. So on their first day of school, right before the queen's death, all the kids arrived, but there was one videographer and one reporter there, basically. Maybe one photographer and one print journalist. Those were the only people there. They didn't really interact with the kids. And when you look at Catherine and William and compare it to the other royal families, Catherine and William have actually sheltered their children much more than some of their peers have. The kids really haven't done that many engagements. Part of it is because of COVID that did impact foreign tours, that impacted their interactions with people. So they really were able to be cloistered, you could say, for 2 additional years. But Charlotte and George did go on tours to Canada, Poland, and Germany. And then we also have, and maybe the Czech Republic. Did they go to the Czech Republic? Can't remember. And George went to Australia and New Zealand. And yes, there were candid moments captured. And yes, sometimes the media will spin that in somewhat a negative tone. But I really don't think the Sky News thing is elevated to that position that Maison is pushing against, because it's basically reiterating what we can see with our own eyes. So why did he make that comment? Again, I think it's because he's seen what Meghan and Harry have done. Meghan and Harry have decided that they don't want their kids to have a royal life, but heaven forbid you don't call them a prince and princess. But that doesn't work. And because they've confused what is royalty and what is celebrity, people like Maison and others make comments that you could see where in a celebrity sense that would be bad, but the Wales' kids aren't celebrities. They're royalty. Royalty requires a different sacrifice in your life. Yes, you get great privilege, but with great privilege often comes great responsibility as well. The problem with Harry and Meghan is that they always wanted to take everything and never give anything of themselves, because royalty requires you to give up some of the privacy that you would expect in normal everyday life. You don't totally get it. And the Wales' kids really are heavily protected, even by the media establishment itself. The media does not print, the main publications do not print pictures that are not authorized. Basically, that if a photographer happened to catch sight of the family and followed them and taken pictures, they don't publish those because they are protecting the family. In some instances that happens, but oftentimes no, because they have an agreement. The private time of the children is considered private time. They don't publish other things of the kids. And that's why Catherine and William also have to do engagements like this. They do these engagements so that their kids can lead a more private life. And so I feel like it's disingenuous for a friend of Meghan Markle's whose sole understanding of royalty is based on Meghan Markle's fundamental misunderstanding of royalty, criticizing the media and by extension the Waleses for putting their kids in that position, I think is wrong, because Catherine and William have an unenviable job of raising their children as public figures, and they have to carefully navigate both their kids' private life, their academic, their friendships, their social surroundings, all these sorts of things, with the fact that they went to Wimbledon today. They met the winner of Wimbledon. I can't think of any other child who's done that. And they were interacting with the King of Spain. So they have to learn as children how to be diplomats, basically. And I don't envy Catherine and William in that task at all. And this task extends to all royals. All royals have to teach their children how to be royalty, how to be diplomats, how to represent their country in a particular way. Some of them misstep along the way, but I don't think we should criticize in this situation, because honestly, I don't think it was that bad. And the other thing I want to say is you get the sense too that he's coming at this from the Harry perspective. Harry thinks that, well, the media portrayed me in this certain way, so I felt like I had to live into the stereotype they set out for me. But I don't think Louis will fall into that trap, because I think Louis's parenting base is much more stable than William and Harry's was. And so I think Louis, even if perhaps they portray him as the rebel, as the one who's a little bit wild, I don't think he's destined to fall into the trap of playing into that stereotype. I think instead he'll grow, mature, develop, and understand, because he has a really good solid foundation with his parents, that he doesn't have to do what the media tells him to do or play into what the media wants him to play into. And instead he'll be an adult, he'll be his own person, and he'll navigate his role and his world. And there will be missteps along the way, but I think we'll see a Louis who comes out and is a great future Duke of York, because that is the title he will inherit most likely once his father becomes king. Charlotte will be the Princess Royal, and George will be, of course, the Prince of Wales. And another thing here real quick you got to think of too is Harry and Meghan. Yes, they showed their children in their carefully curated, managed way that Maison is thinking that they should in terms of Catherine and William. But you also have to think too, Harry and Meghan showed very intimate pictures of their children, like Archie naked in a bathtub. Have Catherine and William ever done that? No. No, those are pictures they consider private, and I want them to consider those private. Just because it's a carefully managed picture doesn't mean it's any more or less intimate. Sometimes it can actually be the parents who violate their kids' privacy more than the media, and I think in Harry and Meghan's situation, that's what happened. So I know Catherine and William will continue to do the right thing by their children, slowly introducing them more to their public duties. I wish they would do it even faster. Obviously, their peers integrate their children into their royal duties much more, but obviously there is also a lot of international focus on the Wales' kids, so I understand why they want to be careful there as well. But I love seeing the Wales' kids. I hope we never ever stop seeing them, because we will be fully invested in them and so excited when they step into more formally the royal roles, whereas Harry and Meghan's kids will be lucky to be still called Prince and Princess in 10 to 15 years. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Maison's statements. Am I wrong in my interpretation of it? I'm totally open to that. It's just my opinion of what I think. So guys, let me know what you think though. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and get this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.